there's a big world of wood out there, and I think you need to explore it.
Welcome to the channel. If you didn't know, I took an 11-day road trip where I saw 8 different people in 5 different states. One of those people was a really good friend of mine named Will Adams with Honeybrook Tools. We got to hang out for a while, but we also recorded a series of videos. This video is going to be about the different marking gauges that he makes, where his inspiration comes from, his process in making them, all that fun stuff. So, let's dive in.
This is the original one, which is inspired by just the classic mortise gauge or marking gauge that you would see, you know, in a vintage tool shop. The difference is this has a circular cutter, so when you're scribing your line, you get a really nice, sharp, clear line. I personally don't like pins because I've never been able to get what I consider to be a really clean line with them. So this is really the best of both worlds, the classic design with the benefit of the circular cutter. Process for these, I start, you know, just with my blank. These don't need to be quarter sawn like my winding sticks do, so my options are a little bit wider in terms of my stock. And then the first thing that I need to do, even before I route these grooves for the brass wear plates, before that even happens, I do all the layout for the gauges, so I know, you know, where center is and what have you. After that, I epoxy the brass wear strips into the blanks, and more often than not, I leave the brass a little bit proud of the surface of the gauge. I should back up and say that the blanks are perfectly square. I start with them perfectly square. I leave the brass a little bit proud of the surface of the wood, and then it goes through the drum sander to get a nice, smooth, and clear finish. And then I hand polish the wear strips before they go out. One of the things about tool making is you find new ways to do things and new ways to be efficient. And this is a relatively new way for me to be doing this, to lay an entire strip into a blank at really kind of towards the beginning of the process. Previously, I had, for reasons that are really kind of unclear to me, I had made them to this point, and then I would cut them, and then I would put smaller individual pieces. I'm not really sure how I got to that point. I don't know why I did it, but it's not the most efficient way to do it. On the original gauge, you know, I'll have the layout. I drill the holes for the beam hole and for the brass insert that receives the knurled brass setting knob. When these knurled knobs come to me, they come with a pretty rough finish.
Oh, I already grabbed that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, well, we'll do it again. So they come with a pretty rough finish that I just don't think it's aesthetically not pleasing, and it doesn't work for me. So I just chuck these up in my metal lathe and start sanding from 180 grit all the way up to 12,000 grit, which sounds like a lot of work, but the brass, it polishes really quickly. And I think the mirror finish just looks nicer. It's a better aesthetic for the tools.
Yep, absolutely.
So that's the original Honeybrook marking gauge. And then I've always liked this style. So this is a vintage Stanley number 197. So this was made around probably 1911. It's got the Stanley V stamp, so that would correlate with like the Type 11 planes. So I think it's really cool that back then they were using a circular cutter. And I've had this sitting up on my shelf for I don't know how long. And one day I just said, I'm going to make one of those. They're a lot of fun to make. They're a little bit more straightforward in some ways, and a little bit more challenging in some ways. So I don't have any of the blanks. Well, no, I'm lying. This is what the blank looks like for what I call the Honeybrook number 197. You've got to lay it out so it's perfectly square, so you don't want your knob to be, off kilter. Yeah. You drill I drill the center hole. I drill the 2 holes to receive the brass inserts. And then, as with the original marking gauge, I drill a hole for the brass insert and the set screw, or the brass screw, which is a little bit different than the ones that I use on the original. They're a little bit smaller because I just don't think that the proportions are right to have a knob that's that big. And plus, looking at the model, the original Stanley had a smaller screw like this. And again, these come to me a little bit rough. I put them, again, I chuck them up in the lathe and polish them up so that they have a nice finish to them. The brass inserts are just a 1/2 inch brass rod that I cut. Again, over on the metal lathe is the most efficient way to do it. I just cut them all the same size, put a little chamfer on it so that it sits when I drive it in. If you don't put a little chamfer on it, the edge of the brass can sometimes catch on the hole and it goes sideways quickly. And those are just, I set those in there with heavy weight CA glue.
That works.
Don't need epoxy, it's just not necessary. And from there, I cut the individual blanks out and head over to my bandsaw. I've got 2 bandsaws in the shop. I've got the Laguna, which is a heavier duty, which I typically leave that set up with a resaw blade on it. I've got my old Delta bandsaw over in the corner that I leave a smaller blade on so that I can do tighter cuts. So once I rough cut the head of the gauge over on the bandsaw, then I'll come over here to the disc sander and I just slowly move it around until I meet the line, my layout line. Sometimes I'll need to take a file to get it a little bit smoother, just because it's a little bit awkward moving this by hand. But this makes it really efficient for the shaping of the gauge. And again, it's one of those things with muscle memory. Once you figure out how to move on the tool, I can knock these out pretty quickly. Not that knocking them out quickly is the most important part, but as a business, I've got to figure out ways to be efficient. And then they're done in terms of the making. After that, I oil all of them, and I've recently started using Clancy's #1 penetrating oil, and it really has been a game changer for me in terms of my finishing. What I really love about it is it's easy to apply. You need 1 coat, and it penetrates and fills the grain. And what I like about that is it not only highlights the beauty of the grain, it makes applying the shellac a breeze. Where, some of these more porous woods, like, walnut, I have found I just, sit there rubbing shellac on forever, and it just becomes a little bit tedious. With the Clancy oil, I mean, all of the woods that I'm using right now take the shellac a lot better. So it's really changed for the better my process of finishing actually all my tools. Actually, before we go to that,
help you. Now might be a good time to explain your arm.
Oh yeah. So since I started making tools, I have gotten progressively worse arthritis in my right thumb. It's actually in both thumbs, but mostly this one because it's my dominant hand. And it was getting to the point where it was painful enough that it was impacting my ability to work full days. I was dropping things, and I was beginning to worry that it would affect the quality of my work. So, never a good time to have surgery. I bit the bullet, and just last Thursday, what was it, the 13th?
2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days ago. Yeah, I had the surgery, and the surgeon said the arthritis was as bad as it gets. So, I am very confident that this is going to be successful. It's going to provide a little bit of downtime for me, which
is why you were in a frenzy.
Well, yeah, I was
going
in a frenzy
crazy
to get
making
stuff done. And it remains to be seen how patient I will be with not being able to make for just a little while. Mm-hmm. So back to the 197s. I've got them right now available in a fair number of different woods. So starting way down here, this is one of the Australian woods. This is mulga. Here is some of that curly cherry. Dogwood, more curly cherry, apple. I believe.
Plum?
No, I think that these two are pear.
Oh, pear. That's right.
And then we come over here. Oh, yeah, we got ebony.
Come on.
Sorry.
They were hidden. Look at those. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yep.
And then walnut.
Nice.
Look at that curl.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yep.
So I've got all those.
You have more
and
back
then
there.
back
Look at that
here,
boxwood.
English boxwood. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, that is. Nice. Nice.
And these are plumwood.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's another curly cherry.
Nice.
And all of these are stamped with my maker's mark on the back.
There we go.
This is some of the Australian blackwood.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
That's gorgeous.
it's really nice.
Yep.
And I wish people could feel it because the surface is just really, really smooth. Well, you can feel it if you buy one.
I know. Go to the website.
And then here's another Australian timber. This is the ring gidgee,
Oh, that's beautiful.
which is so this is one of the most plentiful woods in Australia, and the plain gidgee, in other words, the one that doesn't have the curl in it or the figure, they actually use it for fence posts
That's insane.
because it's so dense.
So it's like their pine?
Yeah,
Like with how common it is?
yeah, it's very
Wow.
common.
Okay.
The ringed gidgee, the figured gidgee, is less common.
Okay.
Bit of a challenge to learn how to work, but worth the learning curve. Mm-hmm. And then this is dogwood.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's beautiful.
So one of the things I like to do, I love maple, I love walnut, I love cherry. They're very common, and people readily, recognize them. That's great. But there are so many beautiful woods out there. I really want to try to start people on a path of thinking about the different kinds of woods they can use. Walnut, you can get that readily. Dogwood, you can find it. The Australian woods are a little bit harder to find, but any of these fruit woods, the apple, the pear, the plum, they are, if you're a wood turner, you already know this, they're an absolute joy to turn. I mean, turns like melted butter. The gidgee, not so much. It's a little bit harder to work, but
Sharp tools.
Sharp tools, patience, and listen to what the wood is telling you. So often I think people try to muscle through the wood instead of taking the time to understand what it's trying to tell you. There's 360 degrees that you can attack a piece of wood from. And sometimes you have to attack it from different different angles. But anyway, long story short, there's a big world of wood out there, and I think you need to explore it. So last up is what I call the Honeybrook 85.5, and it's so called because it's inspired by this classic Stanley 85.5 panel gauge. In the coming attractions department, I've got a prototype of a panel gauge that is inspired by this. That once I get back into the working mode, I'm hoping to have those as an offering as well. Anyway, so these little guys, they're marking gauges, but they're inspired by the shape of the 85.5 panel gauge. And so, Will, why do you need these? Well, one thing that I like about this, and one thing that I've heard from people that have bought them that they like about it, is this long reference surface, the fence. People really like that for if they're scribing a longer board, say like something long like that. This nice, the fence.
Left-handed.
Yeah, left-handed. Sorry, provides a nice reference gauge, or reference face. Obviously, you would be scribing probably a larger, a wider piece than this, but the shape of the head, it fits your hand perfectly. This back curve fits into your thumb perfectly. Put your index finger over there, and then away you go. So I've got a couple of different ones here. Part of the tool making process is prototypes and figuring out, what are the right proportions. And my earlier ones, they had a smaller profile. So you'll see that they're not quite as tall as that one. So I've had a couple of people comment that they really like this lower profile, which is great. I'm glad some people like it. For me, it's not, I don't think the aesthetics are right. I don't think the proportion of this little edge of in this case, maple, to the fence, I just don't think the proportion is right. It looks wrong to me. But that's part of the learning process, Still perfectly functional, still fits in your hand, like the ones that I've finally started making. I'm selling the prototypes on my website, but the new ones all have a higher profile, and that serves a couple of purposes. One, again, the aesthetics, the proportions I think are better, and at the risk of making assumptions, a little bit bigger probably fits in most hands better than small. I could be wrong, and that's another thing as a tool maker. I have to be conscious of. I'm a big guy. I got big hands. I need to make sure that what I'm making is not too big for the average user. But again, so this is it's got a higher profile, and in this case, this is cherry with a Yaren inset on the fence.
Beautiful.
And here is an example. Oh man, look at that.
Yep.
Nice figure.
Yep.
And that has Yaren in it as
That's
well.
Awesome.
And polished brass. It's not polished right now. It's been a couple weeks since I
That still looks
did
really
it.
good.
But yeah, I just think that added touch
Absolutely.
is good. And then another one of our Australian timbers, Ringidgee again.
Nice. That's awesome.
And that's got an English boxwood fence.
That's boss.
So these all fit in your hand a little bit differently, but I think they all feel really comfortable. Now again, I'm holding this left-handed. You know, it just fits in your hand between your index finger and your thumb, and you just pull it along. There's a reason that multiple makers made them like this for decades, if not longer. That said, this fits in your hand really nicely too.
Really nice.
I mean, the shape of, I guess that's an ellipse. Oval, yeah, whatever. It fits in your hand perfectly.
Yep.
You know? And it's got a significant enough reference surface that you're not going to slip off your piece. Yeah. And then what is now the current style, the final style of the 85.5, as we talked about earlier. You know, it kind of fits in your hand like a block plane. You know, you grab it.
Yeah.
And
the benefit of that one too is how long you can reach. I mean,
Yeah.
with the other ones you can reach long, like we were messing
Yeah.
around with earlier, but that one can reach even farther.
Yeah. So, yeah. So those are the 3 Honeybrook marking gauges. For now, there might be more.
There'll be more.
There'll be more.
One of the reasons I wanted to do this video with Will is because I feel like marking gauges are one of the most underrated tools in our shop, but we use them all the time. The other thing that I'm noticing is I currently have 3 marking gauges, and I tend to use every single one of them in a project because I can set them and leave them set. That way, if I make a mistake, I know that all of my marking gauges are set the same way as all of the other pieces in that project. So for example, if I'm doing a drawer, I can use one marking gauge to mark out the bottom, set it aside. Another one to mark out the groove or the dovetails, set it aside. So if I make a mistake, it's easily repeatable. So that's just something to keep in mind. I am going to be getting one of those 85.5 panel gauge style ones because all of mine are pretty much, I guess, the standard marking gauges, and it would be nice to have one that reaches farther when I need that. And again, I'm kind of looking at marking gauges as clamps, as you can never have too many. The other thing that's cool is once he updates his website with the current ones that he has, I'll get first dibs because this video won't be out yet. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions, any comments, anything like that, feel free to let us know down below, and have a good day.